Hi everyone, Agnes here, and this is the second YouTube in my personal journey little series that I started about a week ago. Now, I shared about my first relationship with my first partner who was Canadian. Now, this second relationship of mine, I had been forced by my parents to move to Australia at the time, against my will, because I was 17, and while I finished up my schooling and then went into my first job, I went into working in an office in insurance, and I met partner number two. Now, he was Australian, and we got to know each other as friends at work, and then we started to have a relationship. Now, the relationship was fun in the beginning. You know, we had a lot in common in terms of work, and we connected, obviously. We'd socialize with work colleagues, and I didn't realize at the time that this person had quite a heavy-duty alcohol problem. And in the end, as the relationship developed, that became more and more apparent to me. Now, when I look at myself in that relationship, I had the beliefs at that time: I'm not a priority, I'm not important, I don't matter, I'm not good enough, and I didn't know very much about any of the work that we do here in terms of self-love, self-worth, law of attraction, Neville, Florence, and all of that. So I was really flying blind and just trying to have a good relationship with the amount of skills that I had, which wasn't very much in my 20s. So I thought that love was out there. I thought that it was a man's job to love and make you feel happy, and in the end that obviously didn't work. Now, I was together with this person for, if I remember correctly, about 4 years, and in my I'm second bestness and I'm not good enough, I remember once I went over to see his mother, and she said to me, because she had a mental illness and I didn't realize at the time, I came and knocked on the door and was, I had my first little car and I was excited to go and, show him and pick him up. And I knocked on the door and she had this nasty look on her face, and she said, "Look, I don't like you and I never will." And I was mortified, to say the least. I mean, if that happened now, it would be totally different. But today, I have a lot more self-worth and self-love compared to when I was in my 20s. So I got very hurt, very upset. I didn't wait for him to come to the door, and I got in the car and cried all the way home. And then he was contacting me saying, "Hey, where are you?" And I then said to him later, "Look, your mum said this." And, of course, then he was very embarrassed, and he obviously knew his mother had a mental illness, but he was having to live with it. So, yeah, a big case of I'm not liked, I'm not wanted, I'm not, coming out in that relationship. Now, in the end, I had a desire to move in together and be with this person. This person was a twin and had a very close bond to his twin, whom I did get along with very well. But the whole situation in that family was, you don't just move in with people if you're in a relationship. It was very much expected at that time that this person would get married and then move in. And while all this wasn't being dealt with, I mean, this was an adult man who was in his, I think at that point, late 20s, early 30s, but was still very much under the influence of his extremely controlling, extremely mentally ill mother that, she was just going to push her way in. And the mental illness was just making all that worse. I mean, this person was still having their laundry done at 30 years old by their mother. And I mean, that should have been a bit of a red flag to me, but it wasn't. So I remember once having to hide behind the door in the bedroom because he didn't want his mum to know that I was there. Now, I look back and I think how stupid I was for putting up with that. And if I could go back and give my younger self a bit of a slap, I would. But in those days, you know, the self-love and the self-worth was at a very low level. So, you know, that was that, and that was then. So I had this fear of being second best at that time. And being second best at that time, I actually attracted a third party, and that third party ended up moving in with my partner, and it ended up that then they started dating, and then they ended up, you know, having a relationship, and it basically broke the relationship apart. Now, it's not about blaming anybody. When you have the belief I'm second best and I'm not good enough, these things happen, and you know, it did happen to me. So I am very grateful that I did not end up with this person, because being with someone that has a heavy duty addiction, personally, I wouldn't have spent time revising or working on living in the end of being with that person and that they were healthy and alcohol free. That's just my choice. Some people decide that they want to try and revise that stuff and live in the end and do all that work, and that's, you know, totally an individual decision. But for me, no, that's not something that today I would do. I think when you are involved with someone that has any heavy-duty addiction, whether it be gambling or drugs or alcohol or, you know, food or whatever it is, to a massive excess, and they're not willing to deal with it and they want to continue it, it's a very, very steep uphill battle, because you won't be a priority and you won't be first best, and you certainly won't be able to really get into the place where you have a good connection with somebody that's already going to put their addiction first. Now, I will talk a bit more about being in a relationship with someone who has an addiction but has been in recovery for a long time. So each time I moved on to another relationship, things changed and things improved, and it got better and better. But with this particular one, it came to an end, and of course I was upset. Am I upset now? Absolutely not. And obviously I wish him all the best, and I do hope that that he has found, you know, love and connection with whoever he's with these days. I haven't had contact with person number one or person number two for at least 20 years. So I think that, you know, it's good to reflect upon where we've come from, and it's good to see the gifts that came out of that. For me, it improved my self-love. It improved my feeling loved and wanted, because I was in situations with this particular person in Australia where I felt incredibly unloved and incredibly unwanted, not just by him, but by his mother. Now, his father and his brother was another whole story. They were very loving and very responsive, and I am very grateful to them for that. But, you know, everyone's you pushed out. So I got what I got from where I was at mentally and emotionally. So that is the second relationship in the series. Sharing a little bit more about me, because I know when you listen to people on YouTube, it's good to know a little bit about them. I haven't shared a lot about my relationships because, just look, to be honest, it's, you know, stuff that was been in the past, but I thought it might be at this stage of being on YouTube of value to you, those of you that are moving along the way and you're actually in these situations, whether you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s, it really doesn't matter. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, and I will share part 3, the third relationship, in the next YouTube. Lots of love, everyone. And I will put the link to this series down below, and I will also put the links to any bits and pieces that I think are relevant that I learnt along my journey that could help you at this point in time. Lots of love, and I will see you in the next YouTube.